let me say, a word in defense of reason in dialogue with faith.
Because faith is that proof. Faith unites us to that substance.
But reason, in order to realize its full potential, needs the horizons revealed by and truths contained in the faith. And not just any faith, but the Catholic faith.
But anyway, getting back to the process, it was in 1958 that I first came to the Abbey. I was in a Broadway production of The Pleasure of His Company with Cyril Richard, Cornelia Otis Skinner, Charlie Ruggles, for some of you who remember, and George Papard, you remember him. And I was tired and exhausted, and a friend of mine suggested that I take a break and go to New York for a while and go to the Abbey for a retreat. I suppose a question about a vocation had always been in the back of my mind, and from the first moment that I came to the Abbey, I felt that I belonged there in some way. In 1959, I met with Reverend Mother Benedict Duss, and I asked her, do you think I might have a vocation here? Am I material to enter the monastery? And she said, no, Dolores. You go back to Hollywood and return to your career. And she said, I think, go and come back, and you can come back and have a visit. I was so relieved. I got out of there so fast. I went back to Hollywood saying, I don't have to deal with this thing. I can just be an actress and forget it. And I did for 3 years. But it never went away. I became engaged to a man named Don Robinson. And one night he asked me if I really loved him. And I did. But he knew there was something else that was holding me back from fully wanting to get married. And I knew there was something in me that stood in the way of making that commitment, and that something with my life wasn't quite right. But he came out with it, and he said, Dolores, would you go to that monastery and see what's bothering you? And in fact, I made arrangements the next day. The next available flight to Connecticut, I went back. And I met with Reverend Mother Benedict again, and I told her my story. And I asked her what I should do. And she said, Dolores, what do you want to do? And I said, Lady Abbess, I want to do God's will. I really want to be an actress. I want to go back to Hollywood, and I want to marry Don Robinson, and I want to make movies. But I want to know what God's will is. And Lady Abbess said, I didn't ask you about God's will. God very well knows his own will. She was some person, let me tell you. I asked you about your will, and I don't want to know about God's will anymore. He has an absolute grasp of his own will, and I'm sure he understands what he wills. What I want to know is what your will is. And I said, I want to go back to California, but I really want to know what God's will is. Well, we went around for an hour. Lady Abbess finally got up and walked out. She said, forget it. So I went to meet with Mother Placid, who was my dear friend there, my contact person at the time, and still is a member of the community. And I said, well, I guess I'm going back to California. And Mother Placid said, really? I just spoke to Lady Abbess, and she said that what you really want to do is enter the monastery. I said, did I say that? And she said, well, that's what Lady Abbess said. Do you want me to go and tell her no? And I said, no, that's exactly what I want. That's exactly it, Mother. That's exactly right. So I entered in 1963, and I've been there ever since.